Well, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has been blindsided by an announcement made by Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison at the G7 summit on a trans-Tasman project to tackle online extremism. Live to Jackson Williams for more. Jackson, good morning to you. Despite New Zealand's involvement, Jacinda Ardern wasn't told the announcement was going to be made.
Yeah, a spokesperson for New Zealand's Prime Minister tells me that this project highlights cooperation between Australia and New Zealand on efforts to combat online extremist material. But clearly, Peter, that cooperation only extends so far, given that the Australians forgot to tell the New Zealand government and Jacinda Ardern that the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, would be making this announcement at the G7 summit in France. It is a project that is being developed by Australia, New Zealand and the OECD. It's called the Voluntary Transparency Reporting Protocols. Now, once these rules are in place, social media companies such as Facebook and Twitter would be required to publicly and regularly report how many terrorist posts they have taken down, how long the posts were online for, as well as how many people viewed the post. The Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, says implementing regular and transparent public reporting in this manner would help deliver commitments under the Christchurch call to action announced by Jacinda Ardern in France earlier this year. But the New Zealand Prime Minister, when asked yesterday afternoon at her weekly post-cabinet media conference about specific details of this project, she was unable to provide them, only able to speak more broadly about what her government is doing in this space. We'll listen to Jacinda Ardern.
Our focus has been on working collaboratively with both governments, with the civil society, but also alongside particularly social media companies who were part of the dissemination of the video of the terrorist attack on the 15th of March.
Peter, just quickly, a spokesperson for Jacinda Ardern tells me they didn't have prior advice of Prime Minister Morrison's announcement, but nor would they expect to, given it was setting out Australia's contribution. But it must be said, Peter, the announcement went much further than setting out Australia's contribution. It announced the existence of this project, which New Zealand has been working to deliver as well as fund.
I guess it doesn't have to be Australia's responsibility all the time to sort of elaborate on who else might be in a deal, though, Jackson. But in your conversations, you know, with the people within New Zealand's parliament, does this sort of point to any kind of tension between the two leaders?
Well, look, if we look back over the past few months, Jacinda Ardern has called out Australia's deportation policy, labelling it as corrosive. And I think the fact that Jacinda Ardern feels she's able to say that in the first place speaks to the strength of the relationship. Scott Morrison, the Australian government, is not going to be too offended. He describes the Kiwis as Australia's cousins. So not too much offence is taken. If we look at the Pacific Islands Forum in Tuvalu recently, Jacinda Ardern was called out by some people for speaking out, saying Australia's climate change policies would be judged by the Pacific. But if we look at the context of those comments and what other leaders at that forum said, Frank Bainimarama, the Fijian Prime Minister, labelled Scott Morrison's conduct as insulting and condescending. He went much further than what Jacinda Ardern did.